My name is Oleksii. I'm a researcher at the University of Bologna. I'm working on issues related to blockchain, real estate, and governance. The thing is that there are so much talks about the use of blockchain in real estate, but at the same time there are plenty of ideas how to use it in best way. So there are ideas of hashing records from central state registries on the blockchain to create some kind of supermarket or even some sort of MLS standard, and to create even a special blockchain and to put all titles on the blockchain and to create a Genesis block that will gather all titles. And some other ideas, and there are plenty of projects that are willing to address, and this is not the end of this list as you've seen today in the morning. But the thing is that jurisdiction and regulation. Basically, in most of countries that I know, there are two basic things: that acknowledgement of the deed and a registration of conveyance. And this is just a tip of iceberg in reality. When I designed my concept, I kept that picture in my mind. So this is a kind of idealistic world where people can make any kind of transactions completely online, and well, titles live online, they can interact with each other remotely, peer-to-peer, to buy and sell, of course, to invest into creating, into building new real estate without a huge number of intermediaries, middlemen, even without governments. So the idea is to use tokens as titles, not as bonds, not as securities, but directly. Title is token. Unfortunately, the current state of the technology is not able to address all legal issues we know. How about inheritance? If you lost your private key, or the owner is passed by. How about litigation and arbitration? Yeah? And how about parents' rights, custody, and delegation of rights in general, and co-ownership, community property, marital property, how to restore access if the key is lost? How about taxation, of course, and authorization from government? In some cases, it is required for some sort of deeds. And bundle of rights, of course, this is a legal concept that we have to deal with. And there are plenty of ideas. In the real world, there is this huge infrastructure exists to address all these issues: notaries, registries, clerks, courts, title companies, and some other middlemen. And on the other side, there are a lot of ideas how to replace this or to use the blockchain as an alternative to this system. So I will give you a kind of scenario how it can be done on the blockchain with the use of smart contracts and other technologies. So first, the user issue is tokens. The thing is that the government must legitimize it to recognize that his title is a token. So the government, the body, who is in charge of keeping a cadastral registry or whatever it's called in different countries, has to make a transaction to sign this token. In this way, the government certifies that these tokens really is legitimized by the government and acknowledged. And the second step is that the government, the body, will make a transaction, a record in the central database saying that this title is not managed in the central database anymore and it is transferred to the blockchain. So this is a kind of concept that people will have right to choose if they want to use traditional tools like notaries, registries, everything that we know, or to transfer their title rights online and to make any kind of transactions. But this is not the only initial step. Another step is to identify the owner. Well, I don't believe that any kind of government would like to have anonymous ownership. So the best way is actually to use digital signatures and public key infrastructure. In Europe, it is known like eIDS, and there are some other similar infrastructures in other countries. So people will be identified by this stuff. And another important initial step is to connect token and survey, because until that moment token is kind of empty, it doesn't represent anything. So we need to digitize survey and to connect it to the token. So in this way people will be able to understand what is it. Is it a land? Is it some kind of buildings built on the land, and all properties that it has. From this moment the user is the owner and he can make any kind of transactions with a real estate. But in real world it's not possible just to transfer title from one owner to another. We need some kind of legal background. Like, what is it? Is it a kind of purchase? Is it a gift? Is it a rent, mortgage, or what? So, in order to address these issues, I came up with the idea to create a set of templates of smart contracts. So it's going to be like a marketplace. So people go online, choose their template like purchase and apply to the token. For this reason we need to create some sort of ecosystem of developers, lawyers, some professionals who will develop these templates for public use, and of course it will be adjusted to the specifics of any kind of jurisdiction. But this is not the end of the story. The higher level of this system, above the smart contracts, is smart laws layer, which is actually almost the same. These are algorithms, smart algorithms that aimed to regulate some sort of relations, but in public sphere. And so this is a kind of framework where smart contracts will be developed. And in this way, when you develop a smart contract, in this framework, of smart law, it will be compliant with the law. So smart law is just a piece of code that, let's say, it's a kind of standard that introduced by the government. And to address these issues, I distinguish main components of the core of the system. So first is we have to assure access of third parties. This is a kind of contradictive thing that, people think that the best advantage of the blockchain is that transactions are immutable. So nobody can have access. But in the same time, it's a kind of a limitation, because I don't believe that we will live in the world without any kind of legal issues. So we need to address issues like inheritance and need notaries, for example, or we also need judges to resolve our conflicts. Another component of this system is to assure rights of third parties that have interest in title rights, for example, co-ownership or marital property. There also need to make some pre-deed procedures. For example, in many countries, it is required to get the permission from the government or from a local community to sell land or some other real estate. And another thing is that must be addressed is to how we merge and split tokens. If we want to create one token, one title, we need some mechanism on the blockchain how to address these issues and to create a new survey. And there is also some legal stuff like a bundle of rights the right to dispose, to use and possess. This is a very deep legal discussion. I will not go deep right now, but we can also discuss it later. And this is not the last layer of this system. So above the smart laws, we need some certain mechanism how to introduce smart laws, these algorithms. And it's not a good idea if someone solely has an access to the system. This is a risk of corruption, violation of rules, rights. So the idea is to vote, to use democratic principles of, and to use electronic voting on the blockchain as well. So in this way, government will be able to introduce in a democratic way these, let's say, standards and software. It means that, well, I give you just an idea how it can work in the best way. So there are 3 layers of this system that includes voting of citizens, like on a referendum, and voting of a lawmaker, which is the parliament, a legislator, some kind of. And another layer is government, who is in charge of everyday running of the system. And there is some certain need to do it because we need to keep oracles. Oracles is an interesting concept. Well, recently it was introduced by Vitalik Buterin, but initially the idea came from Turin. So this is the idea that the smart contract is something which is closed and cannot have information from the real world. So we need someone, a trusted party, that will supply this information to the smart contract. I will explain you. Like, for example, if a person dies, the oracle will give this information to the smart contract in order to execute these algorithms on inheritance, or to execute the smart will of the owner. These oracles can keep different registries like notaries, clerks, as I told you, the demographic registry on marital status, on birth, death, and some other things. And the government, we need government to maintain this infrastructure of trusted parties. So honestly, I don't believe that system can be completely decentralized in our world, in real world. We need someone to trust. So the best way is to create this, balanced system where everything is automized and can work smoothly on using the blockchain technologies. So this was briefly my research work, and there are a lot of details of this work. So I will be happy to address your questions. Thank you for your attention and having me.